Meeting of the Clydesdale Area Committee held on the 14th of February 2024. So I have apologies from Councillor Allison. We have present Councillor Barker, Councillor Corbett. I have apologies from Councillor Gowland, Councillor Hamilton and Councillor Horsham. We have present Councillor Lambie. Do we have Councillor Lockhart? No Councillor Lockhart. We have present Councillor Logan, Councillor Mars. Apologies from Councillor McCallan. We have present Councillor McClyman and Councillor Shearer, and we also have a number of officers present today. I'll hand back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. So item 2 are the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 3 to 6. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Oh, declarations of interest. Sorry. I thought we'd done that. Sorry. On you go, Carol.
Sorry, so does anyone have any declarations of interest? Councillor Marsh.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. If I can declare an interest on the community grants item on A, B and D. That's the 4th District Initiative, the Kilkenny Club and the Clydesdale Netball Club, please.
Thank you.
And I'll declare an interest on A. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We'd already given those to Carol, sorry. Yes, so we'll go to item 2, which are the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 3 to 6. Is that agreed? Are those minutes agreed? Agreed, thank you. Item 3 is the Education Scotland report for Lamington Primary School, pages 7 to 12. I'd like to invite Martina Henry, the lead officer, and Jill Kennedy, the head teacher, to speak to the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, councillors. My name is Martina Henry and I'm a Quality Link Officer supporting Lamington Primary School today. I'm pleased to be here today with the head teacher, Mrs Jill Kennedy, to advise members on the inspection outcome. During the week beginning 4th of September 23, Education Scotland undertook a short model inspection on the quality of educational provision within Lamington Primary School. The inspection report was published on the 31st of October 23. The short model inspection focuses on 2 quality indicators from How Good Is Our School. The school received gradings for each of these indicators, as well as a more detailed written report of findings, which highlights particular strengths and areas for continued improvement. The outcome for Lamington Primary was extremely positive. Quality indicator 2.3, Learning, Teaching and Assessment, was evaluated as excellent. Quality indicator 3.2, Raising Attainment and Achievement, was evaluated as excellent. For both the quality indicators to be cited as excellent provides the local authority and pupils and families with a high degree of confidence about the quality of provision within Lamington Primary and the continued capacity of the school to continue improving Lamington Primary. Lamington Primary School is the first primary school in South Lanarkshire to have received excellent gradings since the new national model for inspection began in August 2016. In terms of the demographics of Lamington Primary, it is situated in Biggar within South Lanarkshire. The school comprises of a school with 1 multi-composite class. In the session 23-24, 0% of pupils lived in SIMD 1 and 2 and 0% of pupils were entitled to free school meals. Therefore, the school received £0 of pupil equity funding to narrow the poverty-related attainment gap. Jill Kennedy, the current head teacher, took up post in 2006. I am now going to hand over to Jill, who will expand on the inspection grades, talk about some of the particular highlights from the report and consider the areas for continued improvement.
Okay. Good afternoon, councillors. I am delighted to be with you today to share some of the highlights from the Lamington Primary School inspection. Our entire school community is so proud of the evaluation of excellence awarded to our small rural school by Education Scotland. The key strengths identified really reflect what makes Lamington so special. I'd like to share a few of the highlights from each of the assessed quality indicators. Firstly, 2.3 Learning, Teaching and Assessment. To have our practice within teaching and learning identified as outstanding is truly humbling, but this also highlights the remarkable places that small schools are. We really do give every pupil the very best start in their educational journey. Teachers use highly effective strategies to vary their teaching approaches and plan learning activities to meet the learning needs of all children within the multi-stage class. Staff also demonstrate innovative, high-quality learning and teaching skills which enhance curiosity and play in the classroom and outdoors. Learning at Lamington involves teachers and children planning learning in partnership. Children identify what and how they would like to learn across the curriculum. They set targets for their learning across a number of curricular areas and also for transferable skills. All children are highly motivated, attentive, and engage fully in activities and lessons. They are actively involved in decision making and can talk about changes they suggested which have impacted positively on school life. Teachers have a deep knowledge of the needs and personal interests of each child. They use this knowledge very well to plan creative learning activities that inspire children to experience wonder, curiosity, and real-life challenge. The outdoors is so important to Lamington Primary. Teachers regularly use features of nearby hills, woods, ponds, and streams for science, maths, and social studies lessons. Teachers use the outdoor environment to stimulate, support, and enhance children's learning as outstanding. They develop transferable skills through well-planned activities covering themes such as engineering, nature, and sustainability. Children leading and taking increasing ownership of this work is an effective feature of the school's practice. Now, a few highlights from Quality Indicator 3.2, raising attainment and achievement. Lamington Primary provides high-quality learning experiences that result in excellent attainment and achievement that prepare our children well for life. We are so proud of our consistently high attainment at Lamington Primary. I have been head teacher at Lamington for 17 years, and during this time children have continued to make very strong, consistent progress in literacy, numeracy, and across all curricular areas. Across all national measures, the school consistently attains above the learning community and local authority curriculum for excellence achievement of A-level figures. Support staff provide valuable interventions which help children meet their individualised targets by practising key literacy and numeracy skills. The wealth of opportunities experienced by the pupils of Lamington Primary School are second to none. Children contribute exceptionally well to the life of the school and the wider community. Children articulate the skills they are developing and link these to life and the world of work. We are presenting our children with the opportunities to develop skills and attributes to flourish in an ever-changing world. I am particularly proud of our whole school achievements with technologies, noting we are able to provide one-to-one devices. Children confidently interact with a wide range of technologies independently to enhance their learning, such as apps and Chromebooks. They regularly use digital collaborative tools to share their thinking. Teachers enhance learning experiences through skilled, integral use of these technologies. These motivate, challenge, and support children very well. Children's problem-solving and analytical skills are practised and extended, for example, through coding and visual programming. Our highly effective use of technology has also prompted a visit from Sam Anson, who is the Deputy Director for Workforce, Infrastructure and Digital Learning from Scottish Government. When discussing the success of Lamington Primary School, I can't emphasise how important relationships are. I am delighted that inspectors spoke about the big hug they felt as soon as they entered the building. Lamington Primary is a highly nurturing and caring school where all children feel safe, respected and valued. Relationships between children and staff are extremely positive. Yet another highlight for us is the promotion of our equity work nationally. We receive no PEF funding, but equity of experience and social inclusion still remains a priority for us. The whole school community's approaches to ensuring equity of opportunity and experience for children in a small rural school are innovative and extensive. All staff, parents, children and partners work together very well to minimise and overcome the unique challenges faced by communities in remote rural areas in creative and effective ways. This is significantly enhancing children and families' experiences, friendships and well-being, and minimising or removing school-related costs. We look forward to continuing to maintain the excellent standards within Lamington Primary School, and we wholeheartedly embrace the opportunity to share our practice nationally. For me, it continues to be a privilege to work with such an exceptional school community. And thank you all for listening.
Thanks very much for that. And does anybody have any questions or comments they would like to make? Was that Ralph trying to get in there? Yeah. You would need to get on somehow.
Probably.
No, but nobody will hear you online, Ralph, so you would need to get you on.
Right, thank you, Chair. Thank you for that report, and must congratulate you on your team on getting such a good report. I'm sure you do have challenges. Your pupils will come from a relatively wide area. You mentioned environment, which I'm sure they're very good at, but at the same time, high technology. So, very, very well done. Just when you mentioned the streams, and this is not streaming, this is wet streams. I should know, but I don't. Was the school affected by the flooding events, or did you manage to escape the flooding events in Lamington? Thanks.
No, we avoided all of that, thank goodness. At Cooter Primary School, my other school, sometimes we have flooding there, but not at Lamington, fortunately.
Right, thank you.
We have Eileen Logan, Councillor Logan.
Thanks very much. You've actually answered one of my questions I was going to ask. Was it a twin school, a dual school? Aye.
I wanted to apologise because I was supposed to be here.
That's you.
Yes, I'm also head teacher of Cooter Primary School, and I did want to apologise to everyone because in June I was supposed to be here to speak about the Cooter Primary report, which was very good as well, but we were at the educational wards in Glasgow and I didn't quite make it, so I'd have loved to have spoken about my other school to you as well.
Right. That was just one of my questions. Thank you. Could you tell us, in case I've read this twice, but I don't see it, I'll just sort of say them and then you can tell me. I wondered what the pupil numbers were for the school and how many teachers actually are in. I picked that up, it's one class or a multi-composite class. So how many teachers do you have? You answered about my twin schools. In a way, it's quite good if you don't have PEF. Sometimes schools are near enough. Some of them are very, very high. So I picked that up, isn't that there's no free school meals within the school, which is good. And this is a bit, I wasn't sure what you actually said there. You were a wee bit quick. Does the school have X amount of people from catchment area and X amount who actually are placing requests? What's the sort of ratio placing requests into the school and what the catchment for the school is? That's my questions. Thank you.
Okay to go. We have 10 pupils within the school, and 8 are from catchment and 2 are from placing requests. So they are. And the staffing figures are 1.4 just now. No, that's not including me. I'm 0.5, so that would be 1.9 including me.
I don't see any other questions or comments. I'd like to thank you both for your report today and for coming along. And if you'd like to leave, you're welcome to do so. You don't need to sit through the rest of the presentations. So if you want to leave, thank you very much. And congratulations, yes. So that's us on to number 4, the Common Good Update, pages 13 to 20. I would invite Lorraine O'Hagan, Finance Manager at Strategy, to speak to the report. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. This is our annual Common Good Update report, on which is agenda item 4 in your pack. So in terms of the background there in section 3, just a bit of history, I suppose. So Common Good is a fund of either money or assets or both, administered by a Scottish local authority in respect of each former borough within the area of the local authority. The Common Good funds that we have in South Lanarkshire Council cover Lanark, Biggar, Hamilton and Rutherglen. The Biggar Common Good account holds cash balances only and no physical assets, and then the Lanark Common Good account holds a number of properties as well. We're noting there in section 3.4 our annual cyclical maintenance budget or plan for the Lanark Common Good properties, and it talks about the delegated authority to approve maintenance up to the value of £15,000. We're also noting in section 3.5 just another piece of policy that's in place, which is our annual contribution available of up to £2,500 towards the cost of maintaining St Nicholas Church Tower. So this report will just give you a bit of background in terms of the management, the admin of the funds, what we do in terms of the accounts, and just an up-to-date position on each of the 2 funds. Section 4 then talks about the administration. 4.1 identifies that Finance Services administer the Common Good account, and that includes the revenue monitoring, the annual accounts, and seeking committee approval when identified expenditure has come up, which we require approval for. And that's above the delegated level. Section 5 just gives, again, some information on the role of the council members. So decisions on the Common Good accounts are considered by the Council's Finance and Corporate Committee. Elected members are kept up to date with any issues affecting the Common Good Fund as appropriate, and that involves, as I said earlier, approving spend from the account. And the final sentence there, a report on the management of the Lanark and Biggar Common Good accounts will be provided annually to the Clydesdale Area Committee, and that's what we're doing this afternoon. So section 6 then looks at the Common Good accounts for 22-23. Appendix 1 to the report shows the audited accounts for both Lanark and Biggar Common Good accounts, and those form part of the Council's annual report and accounts that were approved by the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Forum back at the end of October last year. And the reason we're a bit late in coming to yourselves is just the timing of the committees as have taken place over the remainder of the year. So the appendix shows that as at the end of 22-23, the balance invested in South Lanarkshire Council Loan Fund for Lanark and Biggar is £276,000. This is cash that's held by the Council on behalf of the 2 Common Good accounts, and it's the cash that's readily available to meet any expenditure that arises. And you can see the detail there in Table 1 at the bottom of page 14, just giving you the split between Lanark and Biggar. So in terms of the Lanark Common Good Fund then itself, 22-23 year-end position, as I noted, the Lanark Common Good account holds both assets and funds. The balance invested in the Council's loan fund for the Lanark Common Good Fund is £251,000. And as well as the cash balances, we're noting the assets that are detailed in Appendix 2. In terms of spend during the year, Section 7.3 shows us that we have in Table 2 an expenditure and income account where we had a net surplus of £43,000 for the year. Section 7.4 notes that in terms of payments to other bodies, we had costs for 2 projects mainly, which was works at the High Street, £6,000, and the Lanark Shed Master Plan of £17,000. And both of those were funded from a contribution of capital funding from South Lanarkshire Council. So it's a nil effect on the Common Good accounts. It was just to note that that's in there. In terms of repairs and maintenance, for planned maintenance for 23-24, so that's the current year, we do have, as I mentioned earlier, a £15,000 budget for maintenance, and that's devolved to the Director of Finance and Corporate. As at the last report to committee back in December, we had no commitments against this budget. Section 7.6 just provides an update on a project that is in the pipeline, and that's St Nicholas Church Tower. As I noted before, we've got an annual contribution up to the level of £2,500 in terms of maintaining the costs of the tower. We haven't used that money in recent years, and we noted back to the committee back in December that we had looked to enlist a conservation accredited architect to identify the areas requiring repair in terms of the tower. That was estimated around £5,000, and we're looking to use and got approval to use the £2,500 that we had earmarked each year for the last couple of years in order to manage that cost. And we will provide an update to members when we get that information back from the architect, and we can see whether or not we want to take that forward, just given the level of cost that could be incurred. In terms of Section 8 then, we're looking at the Bigger Common Good Fund. Year-end position there in terms of Bigger Common Good is a £25,000 cash balance. There's very little expenditure incurred by the Common Good account in Bigger. The net spend was very simply a charge for the administration of the account. That was £217, but then we also had some income or some interest into the account because the money was invested in South Lanarkshire Loans Fund, so that was £416. In terms of any committed projects, there are no projects to date, and there wasn't anything in last year either. And in terms of consultation in Section 9 of your report, we agreed that we would come forward and advise you of any new lease arrangements or any change of use arrangements, and there are neither to alert you to at this point. So really, Chair, I'd just be looking to go back to the recommendations of Section 2 and ask that the updates on both the Lanark and Bigger Common Good Funds be noted. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lorraine. Does anybody have any questions or comments they would like to make? Don't see anything coming up. Oh, no, Julia, thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. Thank you. On the St Nicholas Tower, I'm wondering if you have a timescale for when that information from the architect's likely to come back, and also, how the decision will be made about whether it poses best value or the best way forward, how that will be made. Thanks.
Thank you. I had hoped to actually be able to bring you some information this afternoon in terms of, at the very least, timescales for getting that information back from Housing and Technical and the church, because I think they're working together on that. So, but unfortunately, I've not been able to get that information for you today, but I will endeavour to come back to local members and advise you of that. In terms of making a decision, since we went to committee back in December, there's been a couple of projects that have been highlighted as areas for consideration. So our intention is to write out to local members and advise you of the areas that we're considering. But I think my proposal would be that we see what these costs are for St Nicholas Church Tower before we make a decision overall. Because I think we're all very aware that while Lanark looks fairly healthy, we do have a number of buildings and assets that we're looking to maintain. And I think maybe some choices need to be made at how we take that forward. So we will be in touch with local members and we can agree a way forward.
Okay, thank you.
Have you got a supplement? No. Is that you, Julia? Right. Thank you very much. Thanks for your report, Lorraine, and you're free to go should you wish. Thank you. We'll move on to item 6, which is the Housing and Technical Resources Participatory Budgeting, pages 21 to 22, and I'll invite Claire Frew, the Strategy Coordinator, and Pamela Newey, the Area Housing Manager for Clydesdale. And I believe Claire has some pictures to show us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm here today with my colleague Pamela Newey, the Area Housing Manager for Clydesdale, to provide the committee with an annual update on the participatory budgeting activity undertaken by Housing and Technical Resources so far during 2023-24. I'll begin by providing an overview of the report, which you'll find on pages 21 to 22 of your pack. And after that, I'll pass over to Pamela, who can provide a little bit more detail on some of the progress that has been made locally. So as the report notes, there are 2 main housing and technical resources budgets considered as part of the Council's participatory budgeting programme. Firstly, there is the estate improvement budget, which consists of £40,000 split evenly across the 4 housing divisions. This means that each local housing management team can direct the funding towards projects and improvements that have been prioritised by tenants and other customers. And while the value of the budget is smaller than others, financially speaking, across housing and technical resources, we do feel it's ideally suited to a participatory budgeting approach, as it can allow for a quick response to some of the day-to-day challenges people and communities can experience. So to date, a total of £9,983.85, effectively a full spend for the division, has been allocated to 5 projects which are being undertaken in the Clydesdale area. These are improving the car park at Bank Court Sheltered Housing Site following discussions with tenants, clearing rubbish from the communal garden at the Limpet Law Flats following feedback from tenants and allowing for more regular maintenance going forward, installing a new gate and fencing at Douglasdale Street in Rigside in response to concerns raised by the local tenants and residents group about fly tipping, relining the car park at Albion Court in Biggar to maximise spaces following feedback from tenants about problems with parking, and finally installing new door numbers in Patterson Drive in Law following feedback from local residents that they were experiencing problems receiving post and deliveries. The second of the Housing and Technical Resources budget that contributes to the Council's participatory budgeting programme is the environmental aspect of the Housing Investment Programme. Now, this is a larger budget with a focus on projects that seek to improve the quality and energy efficiency of the Council's domestic housing stock. To date, consultation for 1 project is underway in Clydesdale at the Glebe Gardens Sheltered Housing Site. External upgrades are being planned and a consultation meeting has already been held with tenants to ensure they have the opportunity to contribute to the final plans. These plans and the total cost will be finalised. They'll carry over into 24-25, and once they are finalised, we can provide a fuller update to committee in our next annual update to you. I will now pass you over to Pamela, who can provide a bit more information on the progress made locally, and then we can take any questions.
Good afternoon, councillors. You'll see we've got some pictures to show you as well. The first one we want to talk about is Albion Court in Biggar. Now, this car park was resurfaced a number of years ago, but while white lines were never part of it and never repainted at the time, so this meant the number of cars that were parked there, there was an inability to gauge where to park. This was raised by tenants in the area. The lines have now been painted, as you can see from the photos, and we've since received positive feedback from the tenants in that area. The second one that I've got project that we have is in Douglasdale Street in Rigside, and the photos are there. This was the fence originally. We worked really closely with the tenants and residents group at Rigside. From this working relationship, it was identified that the previous fence was in poor condition, it was broken, and it needed repaired. It is directly opposite number 42 Douglasdale Street and next to number 27 Douglasdale Street. There were also items being dumped in this area. So a new metal fence and fencing were installed at Douglasdale Street to prevent fly tipping in the area. And the next photo you'll see the fence that's now been installed, and the tenants and residents have provided feedback that they're really pleased with the outcome of that. The third project that we had was at Bank Terrace Sheltered Complex. Now, this project was originally highlighted by tenants via a parking complaint. There is a lowered kerb in the parking area, and this was being blocked by cars, so tenants were not able to access the dropped kerb when they needed. Tenants asked about lining this area as a potential solution deterrent with keep clear road markings so that tenants can safely use the lowered kerb and the area is clear for emergency vehicles. There's also ample parking space to create additional parking spaces as well, which will benefit longer term for the tenants. This work has been progressed and should be completed by March 24. The fourth project we have is Limpet Law Flats. In response to feedback from tenants sharing the communal gardens at the Limpet Law Flats, the gardens were cleared of rubbish and grass cut back to a manageable level to allow regular maintenance by the residents ongoing and to assist with tenancy sustainment. And the last project that we have is Patterson Drive in Law. We work closely as well with this tenants and residents group, and in response to conversations with They identified a problem of getting mail delivered. There was no door numbers in any of the doors. So it was agreed that we would install new door numbers on the doors, and the numbers will be getting installed by March 24. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions or comments they would like to make? David Shearer, Councillor Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. No, just to welcome the report and welcome the fact that in the grand scheme of things, some of these complaints may be seen as minor, but if you live next to an area which has been used as a dump, or you can't get your mail delivered because there isn't a number on the door, it becomes a big issue. And the fact that the department can deal with some of these issues fairly quickly and get them resolved takes a lot of heat out of what can escalate into major problems. So I'd like to thank the department for doing this work. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I don't suppose you want to answer that. It's more a statement than a... Yeah, thanks, David. Councillor Logan, thanks.
So the same lines, and I think the method of presenting today is better than it has. I don't mean you didn't present your case before, but the fact that we can see the befores, the afters, or what exactly you're hoping to do makes it easier for those of us who maybe don't know the area to see exactly what you're going to do and how it will impact on the lives of the residents here. So again, thank you. And I've no doubt throughout the year we'll be knocking on your door with other stuff and other problems. But thanks for the presentation. It was actually very good. Thank you.
I don't see anybody else that wants to make a comment or speak. So I'd like to thank you for your presentation. I just wish you could deal with all the fly tipping in the area. It certainly would be helpful, but your budget wouldn't be enough. It's unfortunately. But thanks very much. And if you wish to leave, please do so. Thanks. So we've got item 6, the community payback order. There's a presentation by Gillian Booth and Ewan Lloyd from Social Work Resources. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Ewan Lloyd. I'm the Fieldwork Manager for Justice Social Work in South Lanarkshire. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, thanks. And can you hear me okay? A bit nearer? How's that? Okay, I'll start again. My name is Ewan Lloyd. I'm the Fieldwork Manager for Justice Social Work in South Lanarkshire. I'm here with my colleague Gillian Booth, who's the Service Manager for Justice Social Work in South Lanarkshire. And we're here today to give a presentation on community payback orders, and in particular the role of unpaid work and other activity in the Clydesdale area. We have a presentation. I wonder if it was possible to bring up. And if we could go into the second slide. That's great, thanks very much. So I'm going to start off with an overview of community payback orders. CPOs, as we know them as, have been in place since February 2011. They brought various other orders under one sort of umbrella order, if you like, in terms of a community payback order, which now the sheriffs and judges can use when disposing of cases through the courts. The most common requirement of a community payback order is unpaid work and other activity requirement, which makes up 70% of all community payback orders. There are 10 different requirements altogether that sheriffs can impose, but the unpaid work and other activity is the most popular of those, closely followed by a supervision requirement. Often people that are on orders get both at the same time. The objectives of community payback orders and what we're looking to achieve through these orders are, first of all, to reduce the likelihood of reoffending. We're also looking to provide the sheriffs and the courts with credible alternatives to custody. We're looking to provide payback for the community, so some sort of reparation for the damage that has been done via the offending behaviour. And we're also looking to enhance the interpersonal and vocational skills of the service users that are on orders. And that feeds back into the first objective there of looking to reduce the likelihood of reoffending. So courts can impose between 20 and 300 hours of unpaid work or other activity requirement on individuals through orders. We sometimes have individuals with more than one order, but 300 hours is the total across all orders that can be imposed at any one time. The other activity aspect of unpaid work and other activity can be 30 hours or 30% of an unpaid work requirement, whichever number is the least. The difference between unpaid work and other activity is that unpaid work must involve community benefit, whereas the other activity element, which can be up to 30%, as I said, can involve the personal development of the individual on an order. If we could go on to the next slide. So the unpaid work service in South Lanarkshire Council is based in the Auchentibber Resource Centre in Blantyre, which is a standalone and purpose-built venue. We cover the whole of South Lanarkshire, and we respond to requests from individuals, community groups and other council services for support to improve their areas. It's a large team. We have an operations manager, we have 2.5 team leaders, 13.5 social work assistants who case managers. They manage the people that are on the orders. We have 4.5 coordinators who coordinate the placements that the individuals carry out. And we have just under 17 placement supervisors who supervise the individuals while they're carrying out unpaid work and other activity. So we're the largest part of justice social work, both in terms of staffing and the number of service users that we deal with. And the service runs 7 days a week, including 4 evenings. If we could go on to the next one. Thanks very much. So in terms of the type of work that we carry out via unpaid work, the most common is community-based, where groups of service users carry out a wide variety of tasks in the community to improve and maintain community assets, and we'll show you some examples of those in the Clydesdale area a little bit later on. We also have certain projects that are based within the Auchentibber base itself, things like bread and soup making in their kitchen. We have a well-being group. We have a laundry service where we launder for local community groups, and we also have a workshop where we can make things for the local community as well. Again, we can show you some examples of that later on. We've also got now remote projects. These really developed during COVID when we weren't able, because of restrictions, to get everyone out on placements. And remote projects involve things like service users can do it in their home or in the Auchentibber base, but they can do things like use old crisp packets to create survival blankets and then distribute those in the community, or old pieces of clothing to create blankets, and we've distributed those among, for instance, charities, animal charities and what have you. So we also have a number of work in partnership with a number of different organisations to deliver placements. Those include Bernardo's and Action for Children. So quite a wide variety of ways that we can deliver unpaid work and other activity. Just going on to the next slide here. As mentioned at the start, as well as carrying out activities as that part of the sort of community payback element of what we do, we also look to support the service users in their sort of personal development, which will in turn make it less likely that they re-offend and re-enter the criminal justice system. So the sort of type of support we offer the individuals that we work with are things like life skills, road safety and home fire safety, and financial literacy skills that we offer. We do health and well-being support, such as regular appointments with Keep Well nurses, and we've run events through an Auchentibber base in the last year around about support to eliminate Hep C and a Love Your Liver event as well. So we also do various things around about supporting people back into education, and we have access to college courses that we support people to attend. So that's some of the more individual support that we offer through unpaid work and other activity. The next slide here relates to the number of hours that we have delivered in South Lanarkshire. In the first 3 quarters of 2022-23, the unpaid work service delivered over 15,000 hours of work and activities in South Lanarkshire. 8,400 of those were in the community, improving and maintaining community assets. We also carried out 3,750 hours of work via partner agencies. And on average, that's approximately 1,200 hours per month in the community that unpaid work is delivering. We've also, in addition to that, there's been almost 3,000 hours of other activity completed in those 3 quarters of 2022-23. And in addition to that, and just moving on to the next slide here, we've also done sort of bespoke projects, if you like, particularly in response to things like the cost of living crisis, where we have, for instance, used the service to collect unused winter jackets and unused school uniforms. We've laundered those, and then we've been able to deliver them out to families and children that have been in need, either through local charities or the wider social work department as well. So that's another benefit for the community that we've brought in the last 12 months. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Gillian Booth now, who will talk you through some future plans and other parts of the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. My name is Gillian Booth. I'm Service Manager for Justice Social Work Services in South Lanarkshire. And I'd like to now take the opportunity to go over a few slides to talk about our future plans in unpaid work services, as well as giving a bit of a narrative around the future legislative context for justice services, and talk a little bit about the work that we do, particularly in the Clydesdale area. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is our peer mentor approach in unpaid work services. It's no news to our committees that we've spoken about in the past about South Lanarkshire Justice Services being passionate in terms of promoting a public health approach to our service users who have substance use issues. And we've seen that in the recent years with the work that we've done around placing peer mentors in our localities, and also including our alcohol and drug problem-solving court in Hamilton. So the next stage of that is about employing a peer mentor within our unpaid work service in Auckentibber. And why that's so important is that we recognise as part of the national standards for unpaid work that immediacy is a very important part of somebody starting their unpaid work order. So we have national standards that require us to ensure that people start their unpaid work from day one of the court in terms of their induction, and then actually out on placement within 7 days. We recognise that there has been historically difficulties, particularly with COVID-19, in trying to get our service users engaged and started in their unpaid work process. So we recognise that having a peer mentor will assist in terms of direct contact with service users at the point of their court order, and also in terms of additional challenges that they may have throughout the period of their order. So we're keen to start that and look at how we can embed that into our justice service and unpaid work. The second future plan is around about our kitchen learning hub. And we have just recently recruited a dedicated kitchen learning hub coordinator as part of our staff and unpaid work services. And that is very much about looking at embedding good practice around cooking skills, healthy eating, and thinking how people in our service can then take that home and embed that into their home living. We have just recently last year started our daily soup workshop where service users make soup, and some of those ingredients have been sourced from our educational gardening project, which I'll talk about shortly, but also just about learning how to make good basic food, and we operate that during the week at unpaid work. And then the last one is just around about our learning and employability strategy. So back in 2020, we did some work to look at the rate of unemployment within our cohort of service users in justice services. What we evidenced was that over 50% of people that are on our orders are unemployed. That also echoed the findings from the Heriot-Watt University research paper Hard Edges in 2019 that identified the high levels of unemployment, mental health and substance use for people within the justice system. So we worked quite closely with our vocational development service to co-locate an educational and employability advisor within our unpaid work service. And that was during COVID. And this is now quite a good time to review how effective that joint working's been. That in essence allowed the employability advisor to link in with service users and their case managers to identify who within our system needed support in terms of education, training and employability. I would also say that our next stage is also working with South Lanarkshire College to look at what type of courses our service users can access. And we did some work last year with the Wellbeing Fund that the college was able to access from the Scottish Government. And that was in particular looking at courses that related to well-being, mental health, resilience and capability building. And so that's another piece of work that we're going to embark on, is how we can look at more vocational qualifications for service users. Next slide, thanks. Okay, so just talking a little bit about some of the national aims. You may be familiar with the Vision for Justice Scottish Government report that was published last year. And it recognises that there's 4 main priority areas for justice in Scotland, not just justice social work, but also thinking about police and court systems as well. And those areas are around about early and effective intervention, trauma-informed approach, thinking about women and children in our justice services, hearing victims' voices, and particularly around about shifting the balance between custody to communities. And I suppose it's the 4th priority there that's particularly relevant for justice social work. We know that the evidence tells us that community payback orders and community-based disposals are more effective than custody. And we've got some statistics there to say that reoffending rates with community payback orders are only 29% compared to 44% for if you're given a prison sentence. So we're keen to do what we can to promote community-based disposals where appropriate and where the risk is manageable for both ourselves and the communities. What I would say is that legislatively there will be some changes coming along later this year with the Bail and Release from Custody Act that will place a requirement on sheriffs to consider a bail assessment and the suitability of bail supervision for those that do not pose a risk of harm to others in the community. Next slide. So I now just want to take a little bit of an opportunity to talk about some of the projects that we do. And I mentioned there about the Kitchen Learning Hub Coordinator, and that was inspired really from our educational gardening project that we started in COVID. And you'll see some of the pictures there that evidences what we've managed to produce from there. We created a specific educational gardening supervisor post. And really the vision behind that was to support and develop our communities through working in partnership with a number of different third sector organisations and working particularly in relation to the strategies that South Lanarkshire Council have on climate, sustainability and environmental development. So our main aims were to provide gardening skills with a view to offering service users the ability to undertake the Royal Caledonian Horticultural Society Glyn Award. Also to contribute to the South Lanarkshire Good Food Strategy, that's 2020 to 2025 objectives, and in particular the good food at home in the community and good food growing. We're also keen to contribute to the South Lanarkshire Sustainable Development and Climate Change Strategy, and also to consider about how we provide reparation to the community through our gardening initiatives. So that's not just about focusing on the gardening project at Auchentibber, but also thinking about how we support allotments and different gardening projects in the community. And lastly is also about supporting service users' mental health and well-being through outdoors, and thinking about the connection between mental health and physical activity. So that's our initiative. We have some way to go, but certainly we've made a start in terms of the development of the garden, and also looking to develop our produce in the garden and providing that to the community and the Kitchen Learning Hub. Next slide. So, and I just wanted to take an opportunity just to talk about the Clydesdale Open Day that we did last August, and that was in the Castlebank Park in Clydesdale, where for a day we demonstrated a number of areas of our work and welcomed the community, and I also think some elected members came along as well and really showcased what we did. And it was very important this year that we went out to the communities. We usually do an event held up at Auchentibber, but we felt that it was important for us to come out and speak to people and engage members of the public to help both promote the visibility of what we do, but help people understand more about what community payback is. So we're keen to look at how we can develop from last year, and keen to get feedback from people in relation to how they felt that went as well. Next slide, please. So now I've just got a couple of slides on some of the work that we do. So this is Castlebank again, and this was where we were supporting the viewing area for the installation of beehives. So you'll see that a lot of work was done there in terms of clearing the area, and then placing slabs and red chips. So it made it an attractive and sustainable area for people to visit, and also for flowers and beehives. Next slide. And then the last slide is just in relation to the fourth eco site that Unpaid Work have supported, and that was around about improving disabled access. So you'll see that we've done some work around weeding the beds and the soil, and made that again a more sustainable place for people to do their planting and an area to be in. So we've got a lot of good feedback on both areas, and I know that's been appreciated by the community. Some of the other areas that I would talk about are probably around about the Clyde Walkway that we've done some work on and continue to do some work on. And I'm also conscious that we've done quite a lot of work with our housing colleagues the Lanark area in terms of helping people move from temporary accommodation into more permanent housing. So we've supported that, and that's a continuing project for us. So I will end our presentation there, and happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Gillian and Ewan, for your presentation. That was very helpful. Have we got any questions or comments from anybody? Ralph Barker, Councillor Barker.
Right, thanks, Chair. Thanks for that report. Could I ask if you do have problems with risk assessments in setting some of the tasks? I can think of two, and one involves the smallest of streams, which I thought might have been quite an enjoyable job, but this was considered work over water. But I did see one in North Lanarkshire where a payback order, was actually making, really good steps down to a ditch filled with water. And I just, do you have problems with where you draw the line on these risk assessments? I mean, because some of the tasks look as though they could almost be fun, Right, thanks. If you could tell us about that.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Yes, I suppose we risk assess each placement individually, and we do have to consider about, I suppose, the level of skill and training that we can give our service users to undertake each project. I appreciate that, yes, some projects might look on the face of it, you know, that would be quite manageable, but ultimately we do have our risk assessments, and we take our advice from our health and safety team as well around about the manageability, and that forms a conclusion about whether a project's workable or not. What I would say though is if you do think there's perhaps dubiety over whether or not a project was feasible for us to do, we can certainly relook at that. So we can maybe take that those projects that you've alluded to there off table, and we can review them to see if there's any further leeway in the ability to do them.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask, how many service users do you have in the system at any one time? And is there any resistance from other departments within the council that might, you know, if you're cleaning an area up, community resources might go, wait a minute, that's your job, why are you doing that? Or is there good working relationship? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I do actually have some statistics here with me today just on that question that you've asked. So for 2020 to 2023, we had 342 people that had just pure unpaid work orders. So that's what you would call your level 1 orders. They didn't have supervision. And then we had a further 320 that had supervision and also unpaid work. So in total, 662 service users within our system. Obviously that fluctuates in terms of the number of orders made, and also just to say that the Scottish Government recently, last month, just published the National Justice Statistics that show all of the local authorities within Scotland and benchmarks the number of hours, number of community payback orders and various other community disposals that we have. Consistently, South Lanarkshire has the highest number in orders, second to both North Lanarkshire and Glasgow. So we do have quite high levels for a Scottish local authority. In terms of your question around about working relationships with our other colleagues and departments within South Lanarkshire, I would say we have good working relationships, and we're regularly having communication with our community and enterprise team around about how we can support the work they're doing. There is a standard that we have to adhere to, and that we cannot be seen to be taking paid employment away from other departments or services. That's both, whether that's third sector, that's private industry, or with the council. So we have to balance that carefully. I think we do a fairly good job of that, and I think we can complement what other areas in service do. But we do have to be careful that we're adhering to that standard.
Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chair. So you answered one of my questions about numbers, and then my next question was going to be, which people ask all the time, and some are not very pleased about people under the 25 years of age. It is presumed that they will not get a custodial sentence. I really don't like custodial sentences either. I'm not a great fan. I don't think it really enhances. It should be a last resort for me. But you always get the anecdotes. Well, they get these payback orders and they don't do them. They just ignore them, etc. So, what would be if you got Eileen Logan and she had 60 hours of unpaid work or whatever it is, and Eileen Logan just decided I'm not coming, where do you take that is one of the questions I wanted to ask. So is that if people are saying to me, you say, well, no, it's not an easy option. People assume it's an easy option, and it's not really an easy option. And two, the one I was really interested in is sometimes people don't flourish at schools. They just for whatever reason, school has never suited them for maybe even primary school, or sometimes primary school they're fine, they go to high school and they just, they get lost. So the community, the education system, and they maybe don't have the standards that is required for the wide world, but they're no silly people either, they just get sort of lost. So the personal development part that you were talking about, if you or one of your supervisors realised that somebody was actually really quite bright and would benefit from computing or reading and writing and that type of thing, and or your kitchens, which I think is a great thing, because there's always work for cooks and various things. Is that allowed for you to say, well, part of your order might be, well, you're going to go to this class and pick up skills that you don't actually have. So that the thing I think I'm trying to say is, who decides who does what, basically? And the one that is sent comes a lot to me is that, do we chase up people and take them back to court if they just refuse? I know for an absolute fact, we've got friends and relations that live in America. And in America, community payback is exactly that. If you don't do it, you're in big, big trouble. And it's maybe we don't highlight enough, what we do here. This is what we do, and if you don't do that, because the public generally really don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And it's good that you're coming out to communities. I think that's a good thing. And I have to say, on a personal basis, anybody that I know that's had community payback, be it a guide hall and you got some stuff done, I think it was Law Primary got their gardens done a long time ago, but they were in there. And different things. I have never once they were in, had anybody come back to say that they were disappointed or it was a bad service. In fact, they got to like it's usually men, I have to say, but they got to like the people that was coming. So I'm in favour of no stigmatising people if possible, but equally it shouldn't just be, I'm under 25, I'll do what I like, or over 25 for that matter, because nobody's going to chase me up. It should be meaningful. And should, hopefully, if they're not going to play the game, something else would need to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for your questions and comments there. I'll attempt to try and answer them. So yes, in terms of our under 25-year-olds, so I've spoke before at committee around about our whole systems approach strategy, and that's working with people from the age of 16 to 25. And what we know from the research that's been done over the years nationally is that brain development for people that have had early years trauma and childhood difficulties can take a while to manifest up to the age of 25, 26. So we know that for some of our young people, we need to manage and support them differently from others. One of the things we've done at our unpaid work service is create a dedicated whole systems approach service. So that's about specific tasks, projects and mentoring support for young people, because we recognise that they find traditional unpaid work may be more challenging than some of our older service users, if I can put it like that. So we recognise by trying to engage them in a more supportive way, getting them interested in learning and skills. So for example, that might be about specific woodwork skills. We did some work where we were supporting a church in a renovation a couple of years ago. And then more recently over in terms of supporting the Burnbank Family Centre. So it's about, I think, trying to work creatively with young people. I would just like to reassure you that as part of the National Standards for Justice Social Work, we do have strict measures in relation to breach. So if somebody is not attending and we can't engage them, then it is a return to court. Though going back to my presentation, we do recognise that custody does not work for young people, and we want to try and keep young people out of custody as much as possible. So it is about looking about how we can retain and engage young people in unpaid work service and indeed supervision on community payback orders. I think I'm really glad to hear about the feedback that you get from communities around about the value that unpaid work service provides. And I think you mentioned there about, you know, actually people appreciating the people on unpaid work and the work they do. And that for us is a key fundamental approach that we take, is that the people on community payback orders are members of our community, and it's important that we try and integrate people back into their communities, back into society in a meaningful way where they recognise that they've got something to contribute as well. It's a journey, and I don't, you know, for a minute wish to propose that, you know, everybody gets through their orders absolutely fine first time, but it's part of our job to keep the motivation, keep the interest, find interesting work for people to do to keep them out of the justice system. Thank you.
Thanks, Gillian. I don't have anybody else that wishes to speak, so I'd like to thank yourself and Ewan for your presentation. That was very helpful, and I do know that the feedback that I get for any work that you do, well, you've done quite a bit in my area actually, that it's very much appreciated, and thanks very much for that. So you're free to leave if you wish. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, which is the community grant applications, pages 23 to 26. Now, I have to leave this item for item A along with Julia. So I think if we leave...
Yeah, do you want to just talk through the kind of overall report before we move on to the individual?
Right, so, right, okay then. On you go then, Carol. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So this is our regular community grants report. Within this report, we have 6 requests for community grant, totalling £1,930. From the balance, the opening balance, that would give us a remaining balance of £14,370. Also within this report, we are, because this is our last meeting in this current financial year, we are also looking for approval for the Chief Executive or Executive Director of Finance and Corporate Resources in consultation with the Chair to approve any further community grant applications which meet the relevant criteria. Okay, so if we move to the individual applications, and if Councillor McClyman and Councillor Marsh can leave, we'll deal with application A and bring Councillor McClyman back in, then deal with application B and D, bring Councillor Marsh back in, and then deal with the rest of the applications.
Deal with the Chair.
Yeah. I'll do that just now. I'll just let Councillor McClyman and Marsh leave. Okay, so obviously given that the Chair has now declared an interest and left the room, in terms of standing orders, I am looking for a member to take the Chair for the community grant application A only.
I propose Councillor Logan.
Can you put your microphone on, Councillor Shearer?
I propose Councillor Logan.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. Whatever. Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Logan will take the Chair for application A.
No, I'll just rattle shoot. No coming back.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Logan. Okay, so the application that we are dealing with is 4th and District Development Trust. The purpose of the grant is administration and publicity costs. Total eligible grant is £800 and the recommendation is £480, which is 60% off.
We've looked at the papers, we've looked at the grant.
Oh.
So we've looked, it's been in the papers and we've read through it and we've seen the grant here. Are we agreeing this grant? Agreed. Anybody otherwise minded?
Thanks. Just, at this time of the the annual process, just why is the recommendation 60%? I know we've been through this before, but if you could just explain that again.
Carol?
Certainly, yeah, through yourself, Chair. So the recommendation is 60%, and that is because that is what we recommend all year round. So no matter how much money is left in the budget, the recommendation is 60%, and it means that groups are being treated equally.
It's David.
Okay, well, thanks. No, that explains that. So
Thank you.
I'm agreeable.
Could you put yourself off and I'll get David in? Thank you. Councillor Shearer?
Thanks, Chair. Just to agree with the clerk that we should stick to what we've done throughout the year. It wouldn't be fair to give somebody 100% just because they're coming in at the end and we've got some money spare. Could I make a suggestion that maybe when we come to the next financial year, we maybe look at doing some advertising amongst the groups out there to say that here's the criteria, here's what's available to you. If you've got a project coming up, could you please apply? Because I do find that we're now coming to the end of the financial year with quite a substantial sum of money still being left over. And I do understand that powers will be given to the Chief Executive to deal with any grants during March when this committee doesn't meet. But I would think by the end of March we'll still be left with quite a substantial amount of money that our communities could very much use and need at this time. Thanks, Chair.
I agree actually with what Councillor Shearer is actually saying. I don't think it's right that you would change the criteria or you'd get a flurry at the end of everybody, people hanging off maybe to wait. But I also absolutely agree, because we were discussing this in another meeting that you were at and I this morning, where it seems to be if you know that you can apply, which is fine, I mean, that's no problem, you're applying, but there must be people who don't know the system and don't know how to apply. So I think you're right, either be it through social media, through our media people or whatever, but I think we should have a wee concentrated effort in all areas, probably in South Lanarkshire, to say, this is here, would you like to come along and apply for it? Yes, I agree. So are we agreed on this one? Yes. Thank you. Okay, Carol.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll bring Councillor McClymont back in now. Thank you.
That was easy. So we can move on to application B, the Clydesdale Netball Club, and D, the Kilninny Club Lanark. The Clydesdale Netball Club is 300, which is the maximum for sporting organisations, so we can't do anything with that one. And the Kilninny is, they had applied for 450 and we're giving them 60%, which is 270. Do we have an agreement for that? Councillor Logan. Thank you. I don't disagree with any of the two, but on the Kilninny Club, is that how you say it, Kilninny? I'm assuming it's to help them to build for Lanimers. No?
I believe it's for the illuminated parade.
Well, same type of thing.
At Christmas.
Right, that's fine. No, I don't have any disagreement with it, but it's something, that we were discussing when you were out there. I think, again, we need to let people know that this is maybe available, because some people seem to know and others maybe don't know that they could come in. So we're discussing it that maybe come the next round that we should be pushing this a wee bit better. That was all it was. I don't have any objections. Thanks.
No, I think you're right. And I think they do. I mean, it goes in the View after this committee. They do put an article in the View for people to read, whether they read it or realise it's there. I know I certainly let my community know that if they say we're needing such and such, well, you can actually go to the Area Committee. But bearing in mind, we're probably going to take a reduction in our grants just shortly. We need to be careful. David, Councillor Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. No, just to back up what Councillor Logan had said, we had discussed it earlier. I do think there is we need to do a wee bit of a push. And I'm repeating myself here, I don't agree with, maybe at this time of the year giving more than what we have at the beginning of the year, because that wouldn't be fair on people who had applied earlier in the year. But if we can do a bit more advertising, a bit more contact with the community groups to say that there is money available for certain projects, and they'll get assistance if they need it to apply to get through the system, so that we can hopefully spread the grants right throughout the year, so that we're no left with anything substantial at the end of it, because we know that any money that's left in Clydesdale unspent just comes back to Hamilton.
Well, I don't quite agree that it
Either
comes back to Hamilton.
either or. I
think it might be.
I think you might get a better response if you tell folk in Clydesdale it's going back to Hamilton rather than back to the council.
Well, remember, this is YouTube, David, so be careful what you say. Okay, so that's us agreed. B and D, is that correct? Agreed that the amount that's there. So we can bring Julia back in, thanks. Thanks for waiting. Julia, that says agreed B and D as well. So we're moving on to C, which is a bigger area, climate care, bigger. They've applied for 500. We're recommending 60% again at 300. Is that agreed? Agreed. We have E, Lanark Bigger and Peebles Full Show Society in Lisbehago. They've applied for 378. The recommendation is 230, just rounding it up to the nearest £5 to say. That's 60%. Is that agreed? Agreed. And we have F, 449 Squadron RAF Air Cadets in Lanark. And they were looking for, they're looking for 1,500 was the cost. The eligible grant was 1,000, but they can only get 350 because they're a uniformed organisation. So is that agreed? Thank you. The only other thing I think we have to agree is the request for the authorisation of the Chief Exec with the Executive Director of Finance in consultation with the Chair to approve further community grant applications meeting the relevant criteria in the period to the 31st of March 2024 from the 23-24 budget. Is that agreed? Well, did you do that? All right, okay.
We spoke to it at the start, but we didn't formally agree.
We didn't formally agree it. Right, Eileen, behave yourself. And that's on YouTube as well. Okay, so can we agree that? Yes. Right, thank you. So I have no urgent business. I'd like to thank you for attending and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.